Hello everybody and welcome back to another video of English No Big Deal. My name is David.
And I'm Maddie.
And in today's video, we're going to talk about the 15 phrases, the 15 most important phrases of Conversation 17. And as usual, I'm going to ask Maddie what the conversation is all about. So Maddie, what is it?
Conversation 17 is all about recycling. I really love this topic because everybody can work on recycling and it's a great way to help preserve our planet. So in this conversation, we introduce to you a lot of vocabulary that is used for recycling. So you can engage in this kind of topic when you're talking about how to save the environment, things that we can do to preserve our planet, so on and so forth. So this will be really helpful in those kinds of conversations. Now, if you do like this video or you find it helpful, don't forget to leave a thumbs up and also subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on the next video. Now, let's get straight into the main content of today's video.
Number 1. To toss something away or to toss away something. Maddie, are you done with your coffee? I'm about to toss mine away, so I don't mind taking yours with me. Now, for the pronunciation for this phrase, make sure that you pronounce the word toss properly. So the word toss, it has the long R sound, so toss. Okay, and it ends with an S sound, so it's really important that you know that it ends with the S sound because when you link it to the word away, especially when the word away is just next to it. So toss away, toss away. And I know that it sounds pretty much similar to the phrase pass away, right? But that is not our focus right now, so we're just gonna mainly focus on the word toss away, toss away. Alright, so to toss away something or to toss something away.
The word toss itself means throw. So if you toss something away, you just throw it away, throw it into the garbage, put it into the garbage. And this is exactly what David meant in the conversation when he said he was about to toss his cup away, so he doesn't mind taking Maddie's as well. So he's about to go throw his cup into the garbage. Now, toss has another interesting meaning, and we use it in cooking. So you can toss food. Now, that does not mean that you're going to throw the food away. That just means that you're going to shake it, flip it, or move it in some way to keep it from burning to the pan. Now, if you toss a salad, that just means that you're mixing the salad together so it's coated in the dressing. If you toss a pancake, that just means you're flipping it over and starting to cook the other side. Now for the examples. The first example, if you have to toss away your broken fridge, then you have to call somebody to come and pick it up. You cannot just leave your fridge on the side of the road and expect the garbage people to come pick it up because it's one, way too heavy, and they probably don't have the room for that in their truck. So there's a special company that you have to call and they will come and get your broken fridge if you have to toss it away. You have to throw it away and throw it to the garbage.
And another reason that you have to call someone or a company to do the tossing properly is because the fridge usually contains some kind of chemicals that are really dangerous and poisonous to human beings. So if you don't know how to toss them away properly, then you must call someone to do it. And that service often comes with a fee. And let me give you the second example. In Canada, after the first warning, you'll receive a fine if you continue tossing away your garbage in the wrong bins. And this is so true because it's taken from our own personal experience when living in Canada. In fact, one day, the landlord just decided to come down and knocked on our door and told us that we needed to sort out recyclables in a better way. In fact, not only did he tell us to put all the recyclables into the right bin, the recycle bin, and not in any other bins, but he also told us to not contain all the recyclables in a plastic bag. Otherwise, he himself was going to receive a fine from the city.
Number 2, recycle, recycling, and recyclable. You know where to toss it though, right?
Yeah, why not? I think I'm just gonna toss them into the recycle bin.
Well, you know the lid isn't recyclable, right? To pronounce all 3 of these words correctly, we're going to concentrate on the k sound. Now we have the k and the o sound together. So it's going to make the k, recycle. Do not change the k to g sound. Don't say recycle, recycle. That's not correct. Recycle, recycle. And you're going to concentrate on the same thing for the word recycling. Recycling, recycling, recycling. Now for this last word, it might be a little tricky because you have to concentrate on the k sound, but then also you have to pay attention to the able at the end. Recyclable, recyclable, recyclable.
Recycle is a verb to talk about how you reuse or treat things that have been used already. And recycling is its noun form to talk about the process of doing that. And recyclable is just an adjective form. And you use recyclable to talk about all the items that can be recycled or that can be turned into something useful so they don't end up being in a landfill. One important thing to keep in mind here is that native speakers will turn this word into a noun and make it a plural in order to talk about all the items that can be turned into something useful or that can be reused. In the conversation, Maddie asked David, "You know the lid isn't recyclable, right?" And she was asking that to make sure that David knew that the lid wasn't recyclable. It wasn't an item that can be reused or can be turned into something that's valuable. That's why she gotta make sure that he knew that, so he was not going to put the lid in the wrong bin. And in this situation, he was not going to put the lid in the recycle bin, but in the general trash bin. Now, for you to better know how to use these words correctly, let us give you some more examples. And the first one is, in many third world countries, people scavenge through landfills to collect all the recyclables to sustain their living. In this example, I used the word scavenge to talk about how poor people in developing countries or poor countries sustain their living or make a living by going through all the landfills to collect or to gather recyclables like cans and bottles and metals and sell them away to people in order to get money back in return, and they can use that money in order to buy food for themselves.
And the second example, if you don't separate your garbage properly in Germany, then the garbage company will bring it back to your house and make you separate it yourself. This is a true story. I heard this from one of my friends while we were living in Germany, that his family did not properly separate their garbage from the recyclables. And so after the company picked up their garbage, they realized that they did not properly separate the recyclables. So they took that garbage bag all the way back to their house and told them, "You have to separate it." I was really surprised to hear that. And so afterwards, I told my family that we need to make sure to properly separate the recyclables from the garbage.
Number 3, commercial.
Absolutely. There have been commercials about it, and I've seen them so many times that I'll never forget it.
Now, the pronunciation for this word is quite simple and easy, and all you have to be concerned about is the third syllable. And if you can pronounce the third syllable correctly, the whole word is gonna come along. Now, practice along with me for the third one. Show, show. Now, notice that you have to roll your tongue in order to make the sharp sh sound clear, and stick your tongue up at the end of this word in order to pronounce the L sound correctly. So, show, show, commercial, commercial. Once again, commercial.
Now, commercial is both an adjective and a noun, but here we're going to concentrate on its noun form. Now, commercials are usually video advertisements or audio advertisements that you'll see on TV, hear over the radio, or even on websites. Now, you would not use the word commercial for video advertisements that you see on social networking sites. So you wouldn't say, I saw a commercial on Facebook, I saw a commercial on Instagram. That's not correct. We use video advertisements when you're talking about those social networking sites, and we'll use commercials when you're talking about TV or radio advertisements. In the conversation, Maddie said that she's seen so many commercials about recycling that she'll never forget it. So she's seen so many video advertisements on TV about recycling that she can't forget it. Going to the examples, the first one, deceptive commercials can be a very big problem for consumers. Now, this is actually a very serious problem. So some of the video advertisements or commercials that you see on TV are not always correct. Maybe they'll embed some extra information that isn't always true. So when you try to purchase the thing that you see in the commercial, you're not getting exactly what you hoped for.
I think this problem was a real headache for a lot of people when online shopping first emerged, because around that time, people just saw something on TV and just decided to buy it online. So they actually received something that was less quality than what was advertised in those commercials. And that really disappointed them in some way. And that is not the only problem that deters people from watching commercials. But in the second example, another problem will arise and gives you more of the idea of why people hate commercials nowadays as well. Many people find commercial breaks very annoying when watching a movie or a program on TV. Of course, when you're interested in watching something, you just want it to continue on and on and on until it's done, right? And you don't want any interference, especially about something that you are not interested in. For example, some of the products that you haven't even seen before, or some of the people that are talking about something that you don't even know. That's why these days, people find it extremely convenient to go on Netflix or some other streaming sites in order to watch the movie or watch the program that they love instead of watching them on TV in order to avoid commercial breaks.
I think they also time those commercials really well on TV because it seems to interrupt your show or movie right at a peak time, right about as soon as something important is happening than it would if they just played the movie straight, because the longer you watch their program, the more money they will make. So that's why they put the commercials right at the times that they do. Number 4, turn something into something.
I'm wondering what they turn these recycled products into.
I'm not entirely sure. I know that they'll turn glass bottles back into sand for coastal restoration. Along with that, they'll recycle the plastic bottles and turn them into brand new ones. Now, for the pronunciation, the first thing that we're going to concentrate on is the sound in turn. Make sure it is pronounced clearly and accurately. Don't say turn, turn. Not correct. Turn, turn. And for the second thing, there are 3 different ways to pronounce into. Now, you can say into, but this really slows you down and you can't say the sentence fast. Turn something into something. Now, if you want to say this faster, then you can change into to inta. Inta. This is the typical way that native speakers say this. Turn something into something. Now, for the very last way, you can say inna. Inna. Turn something into something. Now, make sure that you're saying the sentence fast, because if you say it too slow, it's gonna sound really weird to native speakers and you might get a questionable look. Turn something into something. Turn something into something.
To turn something into something means to change it or to make it become something else or something different. Now, when using this phrase, make sure you use the preposition into, and you can also interchangeably use the verb change for turn. So instead of saying to turn something into something, you can also say to change something into something. Now, going back to the conversation, Maddie said that they'll turn glass bottles into sand for coastal restoration and plastic bottles into brand new ones. Now, sand is something that's completely different from glass bottles, while brand new plastic bottles are completely different from used ones. So that's why Maddie used this phrase, and it made a lot of sense in this situation. Now, in order to give you more of the idea of how to use this phrase correctly, let us give you some examples. The first example is, they turned the city into a tourist destination by adding in many more attractions. Maybe the city wasn't that well known to a lot of tourists before, but now adding more attractions to it really makes this whole place much more gorgeous, and it becomes a really huge tourist destination for people.
Now, for the second example, it would be amazing if countries turned abandoned buildings or houses into affordable housing for low-income families. Now, all that means is they're going to change those buildings or abandoned houses into something that is not only affordable, but livable for low-income families. So maybe they'll change that abandoned building into an apartment complex and turn that abandoned house back into a new house and make it affordable for low-income families.
Number 5. To repurpose something.
It's a great way to repurpose things rather than letting it end up in the landfill.
To pronounce the word repurpose properly and accurately, there are only a few things that you have to be aware of here. The first one is upon the first syllable. So, notice that it has the long E sound and not the short one. And for that, you cannot say repurpose. Repurpose, no, it's not correct. It has to be repurpose. And the second point is upon the second syllable. So, purpose. And the point that I'm trying to make here is that you have to make the R sound in the second syllable very clear. Otherwise, it's gonna sound really weird in the ear of native speakers. So don't say repurpose. Don't say repurpose. Say repurpose. Repurpose. And the last syllable is pretty easy. All you have to do is to say pus. Pus. It ends with that soft S sound, so repurpose. Now say the whole word with me a couple of times. Repurpose. Repurpose. Repurpose.
Now, if you repurpose something, that means you change it or make it different and make it suitable for another use. Giving you an example from the conversation, Maddie said that they would turn glass bottles into sand for coastal restoration. So the original purpose for glass bottles was drinking, but now they are being used and turned into sand for coastal restoration. So it's now serving a new purpose. So we use the prefix re here in front of purpose to indicate that those purposes are now different. Now, in the conversation, Maddie said, it is a great way to repurpose things rather than letting it end up in the landfill. Now, one thing to definitely keep in mind is if you're going to have two things that serve the same purpose, so for example, one bottle that is turned into a brand new one, they serve the same purpose. You're both drinking from them, so you cannot use the word repurpose here. You would have to use the words remade or turned into because they are serving the same purpose. So be careful and don't use repurpose in this case. Now for this word to make more sense, let's give you some examples. The first one, When decorating your house, repurposing can be a great way rather than buying brand new items. So maybe you can repurpose some things by turning them into something different. For example, rather than using the dresser to store your clothes, you can put it into the front and now use it to store other items such as knickknacks or a few other things. And that is a great way to repurpose some things rather than having to buy something completely new from the store.
So not only is it going to be cheaper, but it's going to be ornate as well, depending on how aesthetic the person who does all the decoration is. Now, the second example is we can repurpose all the PVC pipes that my mom bought for her pool to fix our drainage system. The reason I use the word repurpose here is because my mom bought those PVC pipes to build her pool originally. Now, they were available, so I decided to take them in order to put them into another use to fix my drainage system. So that's why I use the word repurpose here, and it fits perfectly in this scenario.
So lucky enough that mom had that PVC piping laying around and you can use it to fix the drainage. Otherwise, you would have to go and buy new pipes to fix the drains. Number 6, pollute and pollution. If places worked as hard as Germany did, there would be less trash polluting our oceans and harming the sea creatures like that turtle. For the first word's pronunciation, we're going to concentrate on that T sound that comes at the end. So typically, native speakers will make the stop T sound. So rather than saying pollute, pollute, we'll say pollute, pollute. So as David has mentioned many times before, to make that stop T sound, what you do is you put your tongue and your lips into the right position to make the T sound without actually making it. So watch how I do it. Pollute, pollute. I'm putting my mouth and tongue into the T position, but not making a sound. Pollute, pollute. Now for the next word, pollution, pollution. Just make sure that that shun is correct. Don't say shun, shun. No. Shun. Pollution. Pollution. Pollution.
Pollute is a verb and means to add toxic and harmful substances or chemicals into things such as our air, water, or land, and making these things unsafe and unusable. While pollution is just its noun form to talk about this whole process of making things dirty, filthy, and unsafe. Now, in the conversation, Maddie said that if all the places worked as hard as Germany did, there'd be less trash polluting our oceans. That means there'd be less trash, making our oceans dirty, filthy, or unsafe for all creatures, especially sea creatures and human beings. Now let us give you some more examples, and the first one is smoke columns and substances released by manufacturers and plants are the main cause of our air and water pollution. To produce their goods and commodities, they have to use the big machines, and these machines are using gasoline, diesel, power, electricity, and these are the things that are going to leave behind some substances that are unwanted, and smoke columns are being released into the air as a result. Not only that, the process of turning the raw materials into the real products, the final products, is going to also leave behind some substances that are really harmful to our environment as well. That's why I say these are the number one factors that make our environment polluted.
Now, the second example, crops will suffer if the water used is taken from a heavily polluted source. So this is pretty obvious. If there's a lot of harmful substances in the water, then it's difficult for the crops to properly absorb the water to grow. So maybe you're going to have a really bad year for crops if you're taking water from a heavily polluted source. So that water is really dirty, filthy. There's maybe a lot of garbage or even oil in the water, which is not great for the crops.
Number 7. Rescue. The fact that one turtle was just one of the luckiest ones to be found and rescued. But really, how many out there that don't get to live another day because of human garbage? Now the pronunciation for this word is probably one of the easiest and simplest ones that I've ever talked about. So rescue. All you have to be aware of when pronouncing this word is the S sound and make sure you don't miss it. So rescue, rescue, rescue. And also the primary stress is upon the first syllable. So rescue, rescue. And even though this word can be both a verb and a noun, but the pronunciation is the same for both forms. So rescue, rescue.
Now, as David already mentioned, rescue is both a noun and a verb. And when it's in the verb form, all it means is that if you rescue something or somebody, that means you save them or get them from danger or from being harmed. Now, when rescue is in the noun form, that's just the act of saving somebody or getting them out of that situation. In the conversation, David said that the turtle was one of the luckiest ones to be found and rescued. So the turtle, in that case, was in danger. He was being harmed. So the people were able to rescue him and get him out of that situation and help him from being harmed any further. Moving on to the examples. The first one, during the Australian bushfires, many people volunteered to help rescue as much of the wildlife as they could. So I believe all of us remember the situation where Australia had that really big bushfire and it wiped out a lot of the nature and wildlife. So people were volunteering to help save the animals from being harmed in that situation. They were going into the fires and taking as many of the animals as they could. So those animals were being rescued.
I remember that one lady who decided to pull her car over and walked into that burning forest to rescue that poor koala. And that is something that I will never be able to forget when it comes to bushfires in Australia. Now, coming up to the next example. When my car broke down on me a few days ago, I got to wait for hours before my sister came to the rescue. So I was stuck there. I was stuck in that situation because my car broke down on me. So it was actually stuck in the middle of the road and it was a really busy highway. And being in that situation also means that you are being in danger because you wouldn't have known what was going to happen to you if nobody came and rescued you, right?
Number 8, creature, species, and all living things.
Man, seeing it pulled out, I was just speechless and couldn't imagine how painful it was for that little creature. And if every country has put in the same effort, I think the world will be a better place not only for humans, but for all species and living things.
Now for the first pronunciation, we're going to concentrate on the word creature. So even though this word spells with the T, we don't actually pronounce it with the T sound. We don't say creature, creature, not correct. It's actually the voiceless CH sound. So we say creature, creature. So say it with me. Creature, creature, creature. Now for the second word, species, species. Now, even though this word is spelled with the C, we don't say species, species. We'll say species, species. And for the last phrase, it's pretty easy, so just say it along with me. All living things, all living things, all living things.
Creature is a noun and used to talk about animals that can move around with their legs or limbs, and they can be both real or imaginary. So fish is a real creature, while dragons are mythical creatures that are unreal. So living things are just general names for anything like animals or plants or anything that is alive. So when using this phrase, make sure you don't use it for anything that doesn't exist or isn't real. So bacteria, trees, Venus flytraps, mosquitoes, or even jellyfish are living things, while dinosaurs, just because they went extinct, so they are no longer living things. And species pertains to specific groups or types or classifications of animals. For example, we all know what a frog is, but do you know that we have more than 5,000 species of frogs? And just like any other animals, such as cats, dogs, or even snakes, each of them has so many different subcategories or classes, and so you can call those classifications or classes or subcategories species. Now, let us give you some more examples so you know how to use these words differently and accurately. And the first one is, not all the arachnids are dangerous and scary. Some of the species are kept as pets, like tarantulas.
So arachnids are just the family name for spiders, and of course you can't keep all the spiders as a pet because some of the species are very dangerous. So the only species, well, one of the main species that you can keep as a pet is a tarantula. And the second example, The Gruffalo is a very famous children's book that features an imaginary creature as the main character. I remember this children's book growing up. I loved reading it, and the main character is a creature that does not exist. It's a made-up character. Now, of course, since this is a made-up creature, you cannot call it a living thing because it's not actually alive. It doesn't exist in the real world.
Number 9. On a worldwide scale and on a global scale.
Yeah, on a worldwide scale, people need to be more aware of how dangerous and harmful garbage is to the environment.
Now, I think if you have good pronunciation for the first phrase, then you'll have good pronunciation for both of the phrases here. And the first point that you have to be aware of is the linking between on and You link the n sound to you have honor for both phrases. And the second point for the first phrase is upon the word worldwide. And this word is a little tricky to pronounce, especially when it has two syllables that end with a D sound. So worldwide. So if you don't pronounce the D sound for the first syllable, it's fine, but I think it's gonna sound really weird and inaccurate in the ear of native speakers. So if you say worldwide, it sounds okay, right? But then you shouldn't skip it. So worldwide. And it's best for you to turn this first D sound into a stop D sound and say world and then wide. World and then wide. So worldwide. And as long as you can spare some gap in between the two syllables, then that gap actually indicates the D sound at the end and it sounds a lot better. So on a worldwide scale. On a worldwide scale. And the last one is the word scale. So make sure you don't say, or you don't straight up say scale, because it's gonna sound so off. So say scale and then o. Scale. So at the beginning, it sounds just like skating, right? But then you have that skate, and then you link it to o. Scale. So you have on a worldwide scale. And then the second one is on a global scale. All you have to do is to concentrate on the word global, as the rest of the phrase is pretty much similar to the first phrase. So global and then global. Please don't stick your lips out too much in order to enunciate the O sound because it's going to sound really strange to native speakers as well. So don't say global. It has to be global. On a global scale. Now, these phrases are used to examine the impact that something has on every single country in the world. Not just one or two, but all of them. Now, if you want to talk about something on a much smaller scale, so for example, maybe nationally, then you would say on a national scale.
And it means the exact same thing, just much smaller. You're not examining the impact it has on every single country, just upon the country that is being discussed. Going back to the conversation, Maddie said, on a worldwide scale, people need to be more aware of their garbage and the effect it has on the environment. Now, that doesn't mean just one country or two needs to properly educate the population about the garbage and the effect it has. Every single country, everybody in the world needs to be more aware of their garbage and how it affects the environment. Giving you some examples, on a worldwide scale, global warming has been a big concern for every country. Now, that means every single country has been worried about global warming. They're talking about it, thinking of ways to combat global warming so that we can live on the earth longer.
I think all the countries have to put out that concerted effort in order to work together in order to protect the environment of the whole planet. If one country is trashing and polluting the environment, then the effort of the rest is not going to work. That's why Maddie used the term on a worldwide scale for this example. And the second example is the skyrocketing of gas and food prices is felt on a global scale. And since gas is deemed as a global commodity, and if its prices go up, that means all the prices of all other things will go up as well. And every country on this planet Earth is using gas every single day for their daily operations, for making goods, for their transportation. So if the price of the gas goes up, then of course it's going to be felt by all the countries.
Number 10, to sort something out or to sort out something. Even if they're only doing small things such as sorting out recyclables and stop littering. Now for the pronunciation, we're going to concentrate on the first phrase, to sort out something. Now that T is standing in between two vowels, so we change it to the D sound. So we'll say to sort out, to sort out. And we're also going to connect it. So we bring that D over from sort to out. Sort out, sort out, sort out.
To sort out something or to sort something out means to arrange the tangible things into specific groups. So it's easier for you to get rid of them later, or to toss them away, or to put them into the right position or the right places. Now, these phrases can also be used for thinking processes. When you are sorting out something, that means you are trying to figure it out. You're trying to find out a solution in order to solve that problem. And it is all about the thinking processes that you are having in your mind, not an actual tangible thing that you can hold, you can see, or you can feel. So in the conversation, Maddie said that people can do small things such as sorting out recyclables and stopping littering in order to protect the environment. And what she meant by that was people can start going through their household garbage in order to take out or to collect all the recyclable items and put them into the recycle bin. So when the city takes them, the sorting process is going to be a lot easier. Now, let us give you some more examples so you know how to use these phrases correctly. For my declutter project, I have to start with my closet and sort out all of what I don't wear often. That means I'm gonna sift through my closet to see what I don't wear so often so I can start gathering all of them into the same group. And so it's gonna be easier for me to probably take them away, to get rid of them, or even to donate them to some charities.
That's a really great way to make sure that you're not having to throw out all of your unused clothes and letting them end up in the landfill. Now, for the second example, my teacher told us to sort ourselves out into small groups for the project. Now, all this means is everybody in the classroom has to get together and decide who is going to go into what groups. They're thinking about it and trying to figure it out together and make smaller groups for the project.
Number 11. to provide somebody with something, or to provide something to somebody. I totally agree. If every country is strict about recycling and encourages their citizens to do it by providing them with 3 different bins like the way we have here in Calgary. Now, for the pronunciation for these phrases is mainly about the word provide and with. So provide, it ends with the D sound. If you enunciate the D sound, then it's gonna be provide. But if you stop it, it's gonna be provide somebody with something. And then the next point is upon the word with. So with. I remember I talked about this word a lot in the previous videos. So when you pronounce this word, try to stick your tongue out a little bit and push a little bit of air out of your mouth to enunciate the TH sound. So with. So let's say the whole phrase with me. To provide somebody with something. To provide somebody with something. To provide somebody with something.
Now, what these phrases mean is that you give or loan somebody something that is necessary for them to complete a job. Now, when using this phrase, make sure to have the correct order and preposition. So if you want to use an object pronoun right after the word provide, then you have to use the preposition with following the object pronoun. Provide somebody with something. And the other way, if you want to use the thing right after the word provide, then you'll use the preposition to followed by the object pronoun. So provide something to somebody. Going back to the conversation, David said that if every country provided its citizens with 3 different bins, then it would encourage recycling. Now, all this means is that the city is giving them or loaning them 3 different bins to encourage that recycling. Now, let's switch this up and use the other phrase. If every country provided 3 different bins to its citizens, then it will encourage recycling. Both ways are correct. Just make sure that you're using the right order and preposition. Now let's move on to the examples. The first one, if you promise to crush this project, then I'll provide you with everything you need. All this means is that the person talking will give the other person whatever they need. It does not matter. They will give it to them as long as they can complete this project well.
And I really do like the way that you use the word crush in this example, because crush a project, that means that person will be successful on that project. Coming up to the next example, the government has to find out a way to provide shelter to the homeless people in the winter time. And now I'm using the second structure of it, saying that the government has to provide shelter to the homeless people. And shelter is supposed to be some kind of home, some kind of apartment, or, a small place for people to live. So when the winter comes, at least they have something to stay in so they can keep themselves warm. And that is the job that the government has to do in order to make sure that their citizens are safe, especially for homeless people who don't have any other home to live in.
Number 12, compost.
One for recycling, one for general trash, and one for compost.
For this word's pronunciation, we're going to look at the p sound. Now, if you're not pushing enough air or you make it sound like the b sound, it's going to sound really weird. Don't say compost. Compost. Not correct. Compost. Compost. And the second thing I would like to tell you guys about is the primary stress. So the primary stress is upon the first syllable, compost. Compost. We don't say compost. Compost. Not correct. Compost. Compost.
And compost can be both a verb and a noun. And when it is a noun, it actually means a mixture of decaying or decomposed foods or plants that you are going to preserve in order to grow trees or plants or even vegetables in your garden, and using this mixture as a type or a form of fertilizer. In some places, especially in Canada, people will use the word compost and refer to it as a bin that you can throw out all the food waste. In the conversation, after talking about the 3 different bins that David believed that each country should provide their citizens with, David went on talking about one of them is for recycling, one is for general trash, and the last one is for compost. So the compost bin is going to be the place that people will dump all the food and yard waste in. Now moving on to some examples so you know how to use this word correctly. The first one is, Mom loves using compost in her garden because it's a free and natural type of fertilizer that helps her grow vegetables faster and healthier.
So she's making her own compost. So this is just a mixture of decomposing food and yard waste and just putting that on top of the soil. It's really great to help the plants grow because, as David already said, it's a natural fertilizer.
And all you have to do is to have a tank that is big enough to contain all the food and yard waste. And it has a spinning handle, and you have to spin it from time to time for it to decompose properly as well.
Now, going on to the second example, just as important as it is to recycle, it is equally important to make sure that your compost is plastic free to keep it great quality. Now, this is actually very true. If you put plastic into your compost, it's no longer great quality. It's not as healthy because not only does it take a long time for the plastic to break down, but you're also going to now have microplastics in your fertilizer, which is not great for the plants.
Number 13. Props to somebody or props for something. Wow, that sounds amazing. Props to whoever invented the idea of recycling in the first place. Now, to pronounce these phrases correctly with good pronunciation, all you have to be aware of is the P sound in the middle of the word props. Props. Don't say pros, don't say probs, and it's props. Props. And the P sound here is turned into a stop P sound, the way I say it and the way that all native speakers say it. So props. Ps, ps. Make sure you have the final sound just the way that I just demonstrated. So props. Props. And also the first P sound, and don't turn it into the B sound and say props. Props is not correct. It's props. Props. Props to somebody or props for something.
Now, these phrases are an informal way of showing respect to somebody or giving credit to somebody for completing something that was not only difficult, but significant as well. The word prop itself has many different meanings, but when using this expression, make sure it is always in plural form. Don't say prop to. No, not correct. Props to. Props to. In the conversation, David said, props to whoever invented the idea of recycling in the first place. This just means that he is giving credit and showing respect to that person who invented the idea of recycling. Now going on to the examples, the first one, the entire department worked so hard for the boss to get props for this brilliant project. It's not fair. So the people in the department are the ones who did most of or all of the work, and the boss is the one that took credit for it. So the people that gave him the credit didn't know that maybe the department is the one that did all of the work, so they gave props to the wrong person.
Or maybe that's how the company is structured and operated. So it doesn't matter how hardworking all the grassroots are, but it does matter that the project turns out to be really good, and for that, the boss or the management always takes or gets all the props and credit for it. Now, coming up to the next example, props to Steve Jobs for creating Apple, because I absolutely love the products.
So in this case, you're showing respect to Steve Jobs for creating Apple and creating such an amazing brand that is not only user-friendly, but makes a really great profit for the company. Number 14, each and every single one of something. I'm glad you feel that way. That's exactly how each and every single one of us can contribute to protecting the planet. For the pronunciation, we're going to concentrate mostly on the connecting sounds. So for the first part, we're going to talk about the 3 words that come at the beginning. Each and every. Each and every. So a lot of people will change the word and to an. An. We drop that D sound. An. And this is really important for the connecting sounds. So for the first part, we'll bring that ch sound over to an. Chan. Chan. Eachin. Eachin. And the next part is we'll bring that n sound over to every. Each and every. Each and every. Now say this faster. Each and every. Each and every. Now the second connecting is upon the words one and of. We'll bring that n sound over to of. One of. One of. One of. Now say the whole thing with me one more time. Each and every single one of something. Each and every single one of something.
This phrase is used to emphasize that each member or every member of the group you're talking about is entailed or included. Now, in daily conversations, we have shorter terms that are more commonly used, such as everyone or every single one. But then again, using this longest version is to add more emphasis on the statement that's being used. So now going back to the conversation, Maddie said that every single one of us can contribute to protecting the planet and creating less problems for future generations. And this phrase is to emphasize that every single one of us, that means all the people on this planet Earth, not only for one person, not only for a group of people, but all of us in all countries in the world. Now for this phrase to make more sense, let us give you some examples. And the first one being, be careful with each and every single question on the test, or you may fail. That means not only one question, not only a few questions, but all the questions on the test, that you have to be careful when reading and generating the answer for them. Otherwise, you fail the test.
Now the second example. Each and every single time I need to catch the train, it seems to be packed. So no matter what time I go, every time it seems to be so full. And so I'm using this phrase to emphasize that no matter when I go to catch the train, it's always packed. So each and every single time I need to catch the train, it seems to be packed. This is just adding extra emphasis rather than saying every time I go to catch the train, it seems to be packed.
And the last one, number 15, to contribute to or towards something, or to contribute to doing something.
I'm glad you feel that way. That's exactly how each and every single one of us can contribute to protecting the planet and creating less problems for future generations.
Now the pronunciation for these phrases is relying upon the word contribute. There are a few things that you have to be aware of. The first one is country, tree. So the TR sound is actually a voiceless consonant. That's why you have to push some air out and say country. Don't say contribute. No, it's not correct. Contribute. And the second point for this word's pronunciation is about the primary stress. And so the primary stress has to be on the second syllable. It may sound a little weird when you start practicing this word for its pronunciation, but make sure that you stress the second one. So contribute, not contribute, or not contribute, right? And also in the second syllable, its vowel is the short E sound and not the long one. So say contribute and not contribute. So practice the whole phrase with me. To contribute to something, to contribute towards something, and to contribute to doing something.
Now, what these phrases means is to help with something, to help in building something, or creating something. We decided to teach you these phrases because of the prepositions to and towards. Be sure that you use either a noun or a verb ending in ing after the prepositions. In the conversation, Maddie said each and every single one of us can contribute to protecting the planet and creating less problems for future generations. So all this means is that we can all take part in protecting or help in protecting the planet. Now, let's give you some examples. The first one, don't contribute to the heated conversation by saying something unnecessary. So all this means is don't add to the heated conversation or the angry conversation by saying something that doesn't really matter. It's unnecessary.
Or else the person who's already angry will become more angry after hearing that unnecessary thing. Now moving on to the next example. Bakeries can contribute to soup kitchens by providing free bread. That means they want to help with whatever they can or however they can. They want to provide the leftover bread at the end of the day in order for the soup kitchens to have stuff to make for the homeless people. And with the leftover bread, if the bakeries don't donate it to the soup kitchens, it's going to be thrown away. And it's such a waste of bread, right?
Now, those are all of the phrases for conversation 17. I really do love all of these phrases because, as I mentioned before, they are so amazing if you're having a conversation similar to this one. I know that protecting the environment and global warming is a really big topic now, and it's also one that is commonly discussed in classes like college classes, high school classes, wherever. So by knowing these phrases, you will be able to have a really great conversation about this topic.
And for us to create more amazing content like this one in the future, please help support us by clicking on that thumbs up button and also subscribe to our channel and turn on that notification bell so you won't miss out on any of our future videos. And that's it for today's video, and we'll see you all in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.